Hello and welcome to my first book review. Um, I want to do these largely because I think it's a good medium for producing content, and I think it makes it so I form more articulated or not articulated. I form more clear opinions regarding the books I'm reading, and I also read with a higher degree of intentionality. So today we're going to take a look at Whose Freedom by George Lakoff, or Lakoff. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He has a background in cognitive science and linguistics. And the book, quick synopsis, is the book is about discussing the understanding of the word freedom. Lakoff uh, con- Lakoff holds that there is a simple or basic understanding of freedom that we all share, but that there is a contested version of freedom held by progressives and conservatives. And he argues that the way freedom is being used in contemporary society by conservatives is a way that is divergent from original progressive freedom in American values. And he argues that we need to, or we as liberals or progressives, need to fight back more on how the word freedom is used and articulated, and not just allow the word to be used so freely in certain ways without contesting the frame of what's going on. So, if a short example is like calling the estate tax the death tax, paints a certain type of picture, and Lakoff argues that it's not innocuous, that the names that you use for things. And freedom is one of those words that it's not innocuous how you use it. Anyways, moving on to the ratings of the book. For utility, I gave it a 7.5. It seems fairly useful if in any sort of context where you're thinking about political things and making political arguments, having this backdrop of a greater understanding of the word freedom, uh, regardless of whether you're liberal or progressive, or not liberal or conservative or progressive, but I assume that this book will be more useful to progressives because Lakoff's obviously a progressive based on his writing. A secondary degree to which, or secondary reason why it seems like high utility is that I think it reshapes and refines one's understanding of what fair is. I think that, and I think having a better understanding of fair helps in a lot of situations because a lot of navigating human interactions is concerning what's fair, and a lot of what has to do with fair is concerning when someone hurts another person or denies that other person freedom. That's generally how a lot of harm is created in fairness. Anyways, second rating is entertainment. I gave it a 5. The book is it's moderately entertaining, but it's not a blast. It's fairly well written, but the subject material is not exactly conducive towards riveting. It's not a narrative, so 5. It wasn't non-entertaining, but it wasn't entertaining. Interesting. How interesting was the book? I thought it was fairly interesting, so I scored it a 7. I think that unpacking the various things that are not necessarily clear, that there's a lot to unpack, is neat when that happens. That I didn't realize to what degree the word freedom had tons of connotations, and as well as connotations by different sides and different ways of looking at things. Especially interesting was that, generally speaking, when interpreting freedom, conservatives use a strict father analogy for how oversight should come, and then progressives use a nurture and parent analogy. Anyways, for novelty, I scored it a 9, and so novelty is if you've never seen these sort of topic before, how important is it to see? This is a really high score. I thought it was at least being mildly aware of how freedom can have different meanings for different people seems like really useful thing. So I scored that high for a variety of reasons related to fairness and political discourse. Style, I scored a 7. It's well. Lakoff's style is it's strong, but it's not anything extremely artistic. Um, he's rarely unclear, uh, rarely if ever. He has entertaining tidbits. You can tell he's emoting without him getting off on tangents, so his style is good. Readability. So this is to what degree I feel the author makes the book easier to read. I scored it a 7. He has a lot of various breaks that make it easier on the reader. I think he uses bullet points to create lists in a few places, or a lot of places. And so reading it was fairly easy. It wasn't just like walls of paragraphs, which is harder to read a little bit. Difficulty, I scored it a 5. The subject material is not entirely accessible. It goes down the rabbit hole just a little bit, but it's also not hard. And if you want to take a swing on it, it should be fairly accessible for most people. Although I don't know to what degree my previous knowledge in linguistics and philosophy and freedom and that sort of stuff makes it seem easier. But I think it's solid, middle of the pack in terms of difficulty for nonfiction books, largely to do with how Lakoff's style and formatting makes it easier to read. Linguistics can be tougher if it's not so well. So that gives an overall rating of 6.79, which is pretty good. I've been rating a lot of books other than just this, so 6.79 is up there. It's an interesting read, especially if you are involved in political discourse or fairness comes up a lot. So, in my experience teaching chess to kids, kids are really concerned with fairness. So this had some interesting insights in terms of thinking of freedom and fairness, and also just thinking about the way you think about words. It's not just freedom that potentially has contested meanings, and taking that with you to other things also seems fairly useful. But mostly, I'd recommend it for political discourse and just having a better understanding of what freedom means to different people. That way, you can better interact with those people. Even if you're a conservative, the book can help you understand progressive lines of thinking and vice versa. Anyways, so that is the first book review.